Over the weekend, Rand Paul refused to show up on the infotainment shows, the Sunday infotainment shows like Meet the Press. He's famously said that private corporations are private because they're independent of government, that government should have to abide by government rules, but that, for example, forbid discrimination against people based on race and other matters. But are private companies really that private? Walter Block is with us, walterblock.com, his website. He is a professor of economics at Loyola University, a senior fellow at the Ludwig von Mises Institute, and a proud libertarian. Walter, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on your show.
Or should I refer to you as Dr. Block?
Either way.
Okay, fine. In fact, you received your PhD from Columbia University. You're no slouch in this stuff. Tell me, why is it in your mind and that, and I've read a number of, Harry Brown and others, a number of libertarians, classic libertarians, who are coming out in defense of Rand Paul's position that the government, the federal government, has no right to tell my company, for example, that I can't hire people of color or I can't hire people who are gay, or telling Woolworths that they have, or I forget the name of the company back in the 50s or 60s, whatever it was, the lunch counter, that they have no right to discriminate, that the right to discriminate is an absolute right. Explain this.
Well, yes, I certainly agree. But to just give a little bit of background on the whole episode of Rand Paul, I think what's really going on is that he won the Republican nomination for the governorship, or rather for the Senate from Kentucky. And the Republican Party bigwigs don't much like that because they see him and his father, Ron Paul, as outliers.
Well, I didn't like that from the get-go because they're by and large, they use libertarian philosophies and policies when it's to their convenience, but by and large they actually don't believe these things. But that's why I want to get right to this point and have a serious discussion with you about this. The philosophical underpinning, the libertarian perspective that says that a corporation, a company that runs a lunch counter should be able to say, you can sit here because you're white, you, the black guy, you have to leave. The reason for that is what?
Well, it's abhorrent, but the reason for that is freedom. People should have the freedom to associate with those that they want to associate with and not to associate those with people that they don't want to associate.
So the business owner should have the freedom to be able to do that. That's a definition of freedom, and Rand Paul talks about free speech. And my understanding is that the libertarian perspective in which this is grounded is that the private company is separate from government, and therefore, while government can pass laws saying that the Department of Motor Vehicles can't say we don't serve black people, or the cafeteria in the House of Representatives or the DMV can't say we don't serve black people or gay people or disabled people, but that a private corporation can because they exist separate from government. Do I have that right?
Not exactly, although you're close. I'll give you an A-. The reason that people should have the right is because if you don't have a right to free association, you're really a slave. The big problem with slavery is you couldn't disassociate from your master. Part of freedom is the right to associate with those that you want to associate with and not to associate with those that you don't want to associate with.
But the federal law, the basis of federal law, and the rationale that is used for the federal government to insert itself into these arguments is the Commerce Clause, that the federal government has the right to regulate commerce between the various states. That when a business starts conducting business on an interstate basis or has anything to do with interstate commerce, if they sell ketchup that they bought from outside the state boundaries, as most lunch counters do, that they then come under the purview of federal law, and that federal law can be used to enforce anti-discrimination statutes. We're right so far?
Well, I think you're right as a matter of constitution, at least the way the present Supreme Court would interpret it.
Right, okay, so give me an example.
I'm not really interested in the Constitution. What I'm interested in is liberty. And liberty means...
So you think the Constitution is an anti-liberty document?
Absolutely. I'm not really getting the point that I want to get across. Let me try again. If I as a private person, sent out a note to everyone on my block. You're all invited to a party at my house, blacks and Jews not, but everyone else is invited. The progressives, the liberals, would all say, well, it's bigoted, it's nasty, but a man's home is his castle, and he has a right to invite whoever he wants. Now, suppose I have a store, and I say, hey, everyone come on down to my store, my luncheonette. Blacks and Jews can't come because I don't like them. Again, it would be bigoted and it would be nasty, and certainly no libertarian that I know would favor this. But we libertarians don't make a distinction between a person's house and a person's store.
Well, let me make that distinction for you then. How is it possible that you can have a business without going to government and petitioning for specific rights, for the right, for specific benefits, actually, for a reduction or even freedom from liability, personal liability as a stockholder, for special tax rights, for the use of police and fire services that are paid for by we the people collectively, for the use of people who are educated in the public education. Can you name for me one business that exists in the United States that does not exist as a consequence of something that we the people collectively as society through the government that we the people created that exists that way, that exists separate from that?
Well, everything you say is true, but it's also true of my house. My house also depends upon firemen and policemen and stuff.
Not necessarily. It's possible to have a home. My wife's grandmother lived on a farm in Michigan where, and she died recently in their 90s, but literally the only two things she bought every single year, and she bought them from Sears, were sugar and one dress. And that was it. I mean,
No, but she paid taxes. She paid real estate taxes. She got out on government roads. She got postal services. Look,
right, and if she was engaging in commerce, if she was selling, and she did, if she was selling food, then I believe that it would be appropriate for us to say, you're engaging in commerce, you're part of our society goes to everybody. I mean, doesn't businesses not allowing black people to go to the lunch counter make them not free? Are you suggesting that business is superior to people? Now, one of the big problems that African Americans used to have in the United States is that they couldn't travel, particularly across the South, and know that when night came, they could find a place to sleep.
Well, do you play chess by any chance?
How is that free?
Do you play chess by any chance?
I do.
Do you play with a chess clock?
No.
Well, in a chess clock, what you do is after you move, you hit your clock and the other guy's clock runs.
Oh, clock you said. I thought you said cloth. Yes, I've played chess with a clock, yeah.
Well, so far we've been at it for, 6 or 8 minutes.
Right, and we have 1 minute left.
And I haven't said anything hardly, and I thought you wanted to get my ideas on this, and you haven't let me speak.
I haven't.
No, hardly.
Okay, you can have the last minute.
Well, that's wonderful. Thanks for giving me the last minute. But next time we have an interview, if you'd let me have a sort of a chance to get my ideas across, I think...
Please present your idea. How is it that this enhances freedom?
Well, let me answer it this way. I think people have a right to discriminate, and if progressives who support this sort of a thing were really serious, what they would do is demand compulsory bisexuality, because heterosexuals and homosexuals discriminate against half the human race, whereas only bisexuals don't, and unless they call for compulsory bisexuality, they're not serious about their own views.
See, I don't think that that's a legitimate reductio ad absurdum, or however you pronounce it. Well, okay, we'll leave it at that. It's food for thought. WalterBlock.com. You can go there and read all about it. Walter Block, thanks for dropping by today.